and is expected to rise in the wake of a 7.8 earthquake that Turkey's president today called one of the greatest disasters our nation has faced in its history. The Associated Press's Charles de Ledesma has more from Turkey.
Emergency crews have made a series of dramatic rescues in Turkey, pulling several people from the rubble 4 days after a catastrophic earthquake killed more than 20,000 people. In Diyarbakir, a large crew of rescuers applaud after a woman, Sahabat Vali, and her son Serhat are rescued 4 days after the earthquake and moved carefully to a waiting ambulance. However, with morgues and cemeteries overwhelmed in many areas of the Turkey quake zone, bodies lie wrapped in blankets, rugs and tarps in the streets of some cities. Temperatures remain below freezing across the large region. The government's distributing millions of hot meals as well as tents and blankets, but still struggling to reach many of the people in need. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The United Nations World Food Program admits the aid that's reached hard-hit, opposition-held northern Syria was just the resumption of regular aid from stockpiles before the quake. The White Helmets have called for greater support. WFP spokesperson Ishta Sumra called for open border crossings so greater aid could reach the region. She said the situation remains severe, with one of their own staff dead in the quake.
The region has been plagued by loss of years of compounding crises, and the Syrian people especially, for them it's a catastrophe on top of catastrophe. It's freezing cold now, and rapid life-saving humanitarian aid cannot be delayed. Our staff is on the ground despite having lost their own family members under trauma, but they're delivering. We have mobilized search staff.
Ishita Sumra with the World Food Program. Russia's launched a massive attack with strategic bombers, cruise missiles, and killer drones across Ukraine. A military push by Moscow that Kiev says has been brewing for days appeared to pick up pace in eastern areas ahead of the one-year anniversary of its invasion. Ukraine's military chief says Russian forces launched more than 100 missiles and 7 drones, and Ukrainian forces downed 61 missiles and 5 drones. FSN's William Denislow has more from Kiev.
Residents here in Kiev were woken by the sound of air raid sirens at 4 a.m. and again about 4 hours later. It's being reported that caliber missiles have been fired, triggering air warning systems across Ukraine. According to Zaporizhia City Council Secretary Anatoly Kotyev, the energy infrastructure was targeted in the heaviest wave of strikes that the area has seen since Russia's full-scale invasion a year ago. The mayor of Kharkiv has also reported that critical infrastructure was targeted there in the early hours of Friday morning. A drone strike has also reportedly hit a critical infrastructure facility in the Hemelensk region. William Danslow.
President Joe Biden traveled to Tampa, Florida, where he doubled down his warnings that some Republicans want to cut Social Security and Medicare, and repeated his pledge to block any attempts to cut the programs. His visit to Florida came as he's widely expected to announce his plan to run for a second term soon. Eileen Alfandary reports.
President Biden followed up on his warning during the State of the Union address that some Republicans want to cut Social Security and Medicare. Biden held up a pamphlet about Florida Republican Rick Scott's plan.
I know that a lot of Republicans, their dream is to cut Social Security and Medicare. Well, let me say this. If that's your dream, I'm your nightmare.
To drive home the argument, White House aides distributed handouts in Tampa before the speech, summarizing Scott's plan and highlighting the phrase where the senator wrote, "All federal legislation sunsets in 5 years. If a law is worth keeping, Congress can pass it again."
The very idea the senator from Florida wants to put Social Security and Medicare in the chopping block every 5 years, I find to be somewhat outrageous. Well, I guarantee you, it will not happen. I will veto it. I'll defend Social Security.
Biden delivered his speech in a state where more than 21% of the population is over the age of 65. In the coming days, Biden is expected to announce his plans to run for re-election. Florida resident and former President Donald Trump has already announced his candidacy. Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis may also enter the race. I'm Eileen Alfandary.
Former Vice President Mike Pence has been subpoenaed by the special counsel Jack Smith, who's overseeing investigations into efforts by former President Donald Trump and his allies to overturn results of the 2020 election. The subpoena was served in recent days. The scenario of a former vice president potentially testifying against his former boss in a criminal investigation comes as Pence considers launching a 2024 Republican presidential bid against Donald Trump. Lawmakers in the House passed a resolution condemning China's spy balloon that orbited into U.S. airspace and was shot down over the Atlantic Ocean. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.